taking care of other items such as registrations for 3D Secure, onboarding for Textile and other APMs that we have on board. So basically the entire operations team based here in Malta is handling those items. Johan, do you want to go next?
Yes, guys, thank you. So I'm Johan, head of operation. Sorry, I wish I were head of operation. No, head of product management, based also out of Malta. Basically, we run a team of project management across all the organization. We have project managers based out of Malta and in the UK. And obviously, with any project that we have, we are literally parachuted down. So, and we're just firefighting across the board at the moment.
So the big thing, guys, on there is that Johan and the team will very much the kind of verifying ethic came in, the merchant plugin, the 3DS, when we talk MPARs, anything like that. Johan and his team will put in. So when we talk about maybe JCB or these
Liners, China Union Pay,
all that kind of stuff. That
team,
that team pulls it all the way through from the product side. We get involved in commercialization to get it ready for launch. That's what that team does. All right. No mean task. Right. The floor is yours, boys.
Okay. Look, you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for finding the time to sit into this session. With the idea is that we're going to go through a deck of about 10-15 slides maximum, trying to practically bore you to death for 15 minutes, and then open the floor to Q&A, and you can pretty much barrage us and bombard us with any questions that you feel appropriate. So first and foremost, Luke, can you please next slide? So what are we talking about? Basically, what we're going to be discussing is we're trying to explain to you what the TRU Connect solution involves. So in essence, and I'm not going to go through the slides, these are a couple of pitches that might be helpful when you're selling. So the solution helps merchants secure transactions from credit cards, debit cards, loyalty. In essence, what it is this. We have an architecture whereby we have two primary gateways, which are our own TRU Connect gateway, which allows for all the e-commerce part. And we have the AV solution, which is our POS solution, both feeding into our processor, which is Fiserv and OmniPay, and they are responsible for going out to the schemes. The solution is very, very importantly aimed at being tailor specific to the business. In essence, it is highly customizable and highly configurable. So we are able to cater for all different types of business which are not in our current prohibited list. From a performance perspective, the platform is pretty much uptime for 99.99% of the time. It is scalable and it is based on a variety of API calls which allow us to be as quickly responsive to the needs of our customers. And at the end of the day, we are able to, via the variety of projects we currently have in flight, we are scaling the platform to be ready for other products which are coming into the pipeline.
So remember do you remember what Natalie said, in the cloud? That's the big stuff. Amazon Web Services, that's where we've got the gateway, the gateways now. So we do an active, that's what it is. It's not two servers based on different ones. That's the scalability. That's why we get quicker, better resilience. We're quicker on our transactions to and fro because it's all out in the cloud. Very important. Keep thinking about that one. Sorry, go on.
No, thanks, Paul. No, in essence, exactly what I mean. When we started off on the parent platform, we were using a variety of monolith structures, which we're now moving into a different level of technology with the introduction of a variety of APIs, introduction of a variety of web services, and trying it to make it pretty much real time. I mean, boarding, for example, previously was a 24-hour situation, so you'd have to wait 24 hours because the run was done in batch overnight. Now we're moving that into API with a pretty much a real-time availability. So all these situations are evolving the gateway from what it was a couple of months back into something which is readily available for the upcoming challenges of the future.
Tim Thacker, this is where we're going to get instant boarding, mate. Instant boarding, all right?
Let's define and qualify what the instant is. So basically, what we're currently working on is a range. At the moment, it's a 2-hour range. So you submit the file, the API call today now, and it is 2 hours, which is a vast improvement from 24. We're trying to push it down to 30. But at the moment, we definitely confirm that the boarding is available in 2 hours.
But it is valid.
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
No, it was just me actually. Sorry, I have a question about you talked about the 99.99 availability. Basically, you're saying there's no downtime. Sorry.
Yep.
0%. I know. But that's also very important. That's not the case everywhere, isn't it?
No, definitely. I mean, when Pfizer, from a processing perspective, provide us with the benchmarking, they are saying that pretty much they have, first and foremost, from an infrastructure perspective, they have disaster recovery and active sites. And they are giving a guarantee via even I don't know if Luke can elaborate, because maybe he is much more into the SLAs, but my understanding is that there is an SLA in place that obviously they are OmniPay are guaranteeing that the site is available 99.9% of the time. But in which case we might reach out and provide you all with the SLAs that are being guaranteed from an OmniPay perspective, if you really need that detail.
That's good, thank you.
Luke, can you move to the next slide? So basically, what are we offering? So this is what Paul was previously alluding to and mentioning. So basically, we are supporting a variety of payment channels. So we're supporting the merchant website via basic integration to the website. We're supporting paper link. We're supporting over the phone Moto, and obviously we are supporting different API integration with the platforms. The integration is not only with just give me a second, guys, sorry.
Some good numbers on there, guys, isn't there? 25 different LPMs, settlements in 15 currencies, 180 plus of authorization. I was filling in for you, Johan. All right, that's important.
Yes, thank you.
Keep going, buddy. Just getting impressed with the numbers there.
No, I mean, in essence, so for example, the currency, the platform is completely multi-currency available. From a settlement perspective, with the schemes, we have already 15 different settlement currencies that we can settle our merchants with. So ranging from, just to mention a couple, the standard ones, which are the Euro, GBP, USD, but then we're going down into DKK, Swiss francs, Polish zloty, and even recently we've just added the Icelandic kroner, because there were a couple of business cases where we were required to settle our merchants in ISK. Obviously, as you know very well, and probably Natalie has explained earlier, there is a support from different shopping cart integrations, BigCommerce, the Magento, etc., 3DS compliant. Recently, we've added the account billing updater, both for MasterCard and Visa. We've, as Paul mentioned earlier, we're now supporting Ethoca and Verify as well. And very importantly, and this is very close to heart, is the Visa Direct product. So that was a success story, in my opinion. We are now gauging and benchmarking the system for the last 18 months. We have, based on real-time figures, not just marketing stuff from Visa, we have a 95% approval rate in the European region. Obviously, in the places like Africa, which we've seen usage, or South America or Southeast Asia, that goes down. But there are very few countries where we've seen approval rates which are less than 50%. So to me, when we're seeing volumes of 500,000 plus transactions per year, it's a very good success story and something that we should market and try and sell. Next slide.
Sorry, just before we continue, Johan, just another item that we can mention over here is that we also provide a number of alternative payment methods. via different entities and third parties that provide services. Our main one being PPRO. Okay, so we have a number of APMs that we can provide to our clients. They're onboarded through us for these APMs, and then we use PPRO as our third party service provider for these. And we also use and have the ability to provide Alipay, Google Pay, Apple Pay, etc. as well from our end.
So basically, this is as a reference. So when we're looking at the acquiring process end to end, it's good to just define who our actors are. Obviously, the merchant. Basically, the merchants are the people who are selling their goods. The gateways I've touched base a little bit earlier. Sorry, we have our own trust payments gateways. We have obviously AVS being our terminal payment gateway. What was not mentioned here is that we have other gateways which are integrated straight into our processor. There is a business relationship with them. We have the likes of CarStream and the likes of Payon. We are trying to migrate their merchant base, and maybe Paul, who is much more familiar than I am, but we're trying to move their business over to us directly. But with those are gateways who are also connected. We've touched base on the payment processor, which is Fiserv, and it is basically acting on our behalf when it comes to the processing of transactions. Card associations, at the moment, we have Visa and MasterCard who are processing directly through this arrangement. We have a similar arrangement, which was the TRU SME, where we are processing the additional card schemes which we don't have a license for, the likes of Diners, JCB, and UnionPay, which we're going through them. And we're also processing some APMs as well with them. But there is already plans in motion, and we hope to get to the first one, which is Diners, early in 2022, running on OmniPay and running our own license. So that's the progress that we're going down that route. The acquiring bank is Trust Payments, Trust Payments Malta. Card holder and customers are what we are. Okay, next slide. So these three slides illustrate how it actually works. So basically, you have the life cycle of an authorization. So the trigger is from the merchant side, connected to the gateway, going down to the acquirer, to the schemes, and to the issuer, and back. So obviously, I will not bore you with the details, but obviously you have a variety of ways how we can trigger the transactions, whether it's via phone, as I explained before, directly from the merchant's website, via the actual traditional terminals, via integration with other terminals like other hospitality systems. So there are a variety of ways how, but in essence, these are the actors and how they would fit in. The authorization and the clearing, and the settlement also illustrate in essence the same actors. The difference is the authorization is real time. The clearing happens in batch the following during the night. So if I have an authorization happening this morning, the authorization will go through immediately. So we get an immediate response from the issuer that this is an approval or a decline. The clearing will happen overnight. So our gateways will generate the file, which is called the 80-byte file, which is nothing more than OmniPay's proprietary interface for merchant processing. It contains all the transactions for the day. And it will be sent to OmniPay in one of two cutoffs. One would be 2300 GMT, and the other cutoff is 2 a.m. the following morning. The reason why we have two cutoffs is pretty much to meet the expectations of specific merchants, and so we actually said anything happening between 2 a.m. today and 2300 hours falls into the first cutoff. Anything that happens between 2301 and 2 a.m. falls into the second cutoff, but then they will all meet the same day settlement arrangement that we have for the schemes, and settlement is received in the morning, early, around about 10 o'clock, 11 the following morning, which will allow us to then.
Yeah,
Sorry?
so the key thing there, guys, was we always had 11 p.m. and then we got guest line, hotels, restaurants. So we've got with this second window of 2 a.m. What happens is everything gets swept up. So anything that hasn't gone after up to 11 p.m., then between that the 11 p.m. and 2 gets swept up on the second run. And as they said, we hit the deadline with the schemes that we get it in, and it comes. It's that settlement all the time, but it allows us to do big sweep up at 11 p.m. Then anything that falls out between then and 2 a.m. gets on the second sweep. Good point for hospitality, right? We don't just close up at 11 p.m. They've got to get their guests out, or their anybody sat at the table. We've got that sweep at 2 a.m. Good selling point.
So does that include people that sat between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning in a bar somewhere? Cool.
You speak for yourself. That was a one-off between me, you, and Nikki. All right? No.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Because I've been blabbing for like the last 11, 12 minutes. No, actually more than that. But anyway.
That's a good one you got there of the different players in there. Not everybody understands that when you talk about a transaction and how it settles and how quickly it is going through all those different points and doing all the changes. Bless you, Sammy. Wasn't you?
Okay. So if we can move forward, if there are no further questions, if I understood correctly. Once we go through, Luke, next slide, please.
Just one other point, just so everybody knows, there's quite a lot of information on these slides. I will put them up on our Operations TRU Hub page, so you guys can look into them. Obviously, probably with the images that you're seeing over here, the wording's a little small, but there are explanations in yellow on each what's happening at each stage, and I think it's very important for you guys to know exactly how the process works, because it's definitely something that when you get in communication with clients and they start asking maybe a bit more information of how things work exactly from our end and who the different players are, as Johan was explaining before, it's good to have a general idea of how it works, especially with relation to the fees that we can see highlighted in the lighter orange on screen. On our Operations TRU Hub page, we have explanations of what each of these are and how they play their part in the entire transactional flow. So we'll just make that information to you guys afterwards.
Just on the last one, 3 elements to a pricing, guys. 3 elements, all right? The interchange, the scheme fee, and our margin. Right? It's made up of 3 elements. It's always get that in your head, and the kind of fees and how it's all built. It makes it a lot simpler. Interchange, scheme, and the margin. That's what it makes up, right?
So Luke, this is where I hand over to you, because this is your area and I wouldn't dare to interfere.
No problem at all. So basically over here, the points that are being seen on screen is the flow for onboarding a client with us as Trust Payments. Okay, this is looking at a client from all aspects. So we're looking at both the acquiring side as well as taking into account the potential for onboarding onto the gateway side. And gateway side, we're talking about our TRU Connect gateway that's set up in the United Kingdom. We can also consider this kind of flow to be very similar for POS. However, there's the additional part for POS where there's that terminal delivery aspect, which I'll also add some information on over here. So basically, from a sales perspective, the goal is to get clients onboarded onto the system through our online merchant application form, or MAF as we like to call it in short. Basically, this is a form that was developed about a year ago, where we're basically giving clients the ability to, rather than filling out a physical PDF form or even a PDF online, they now have an actual portal where they can go in and input information onto this merchant application form, which is going to collect all the relevant information of the client, okay, such as the name of the business, the ultimate beneficiary owner information, bank account details that we're going to pay merchants into, and other relevant info, okay. And that data is going to be analyzed in real time by this online map to make sure the information makes sense and that we don't have any incorrect data over there. And once that information is captured by the online map, it's going to pass the data into our CRM system, which is Salesforce. Salesforce is basically our hub for all information, okay, and it's where a lot of the bases for a lot of different tasks and onboarding procedures come from for all the other teams. So yes, once that information is in Salesforce transferred over from the online map, it's then up to the account management team just to give it a quick once over to ensure that the information makes sense and that all the relevant documents have been uploaded and that they have sent us in the wrong documents. And once that information is analyzed, we need to agree with the client on the pricing that they're going to be charged. Okay, so we have an object on Salesforce, which is called the pricing schedule, which basically captures all the pricing that's been agreed to between us as Trust Payments with the merchant. So this is basically saying how much we're going to be charging them, the different fees. Once all that information is stored and we've made sure that all the documents are correct, the pricing has been created and is uploaded into Salesforce, and we're ready to move on to the next stage. The account managers will then move the onboarding process along and push it into our underwriting team's queue. The underwriting team are going to do exactly what their team describes, which is do the underwriting for the clients. And this is basically the analysis to make sure that the merchants meet the policies of the company, okay, and we're not onboarding clients who are not meeting the requirements of ourselves as a business or those of our regulators, so such as the MFSA here in Malta, okay. They'll also do the general KYC to make sure that nothing illegal is going on, that the owners of the business are who they say they are, that the business is actually doing what it says it's meant to be doing, etc. Once the underwriting is done and the underwriting team are happy with the onboarding process that the merchants provided and all the info, they will then generate a contract, which is done automatically through Salesforce as well. So the contract will be generated by taking information that the merchant has sent in from the online map. It will take the pricing information that you guys would have agreed to with the merchant and is stored on Salesforce, and it will automatically create a contract PDF. This contract PDF is then sent to the merchant, okay, for them to sign digitally through an application called DocuSign. This DocuSign application basically allows for a PDF to be sent to a specific email address for them to sign off on, and will let us know once that contract has been signed from the merchant's end. Once the merchant has signed the contract, it's then going to automatically push the onboarding process flow to operations, and that's what the operations team under my wing are going to take over, and they're basically going to start the onboarding process for the merchant on the OmniPay acquiring platform system. Just for as general information, OmniPay is basically a system that takes all the transactions that the merchant has submitted in, either by authorization or which are finally cleared through, and we'll calculate how many fees that we have to charge per transaction and whether we're going to be holding any rolling reserves. And then we'll also calculate how much we're going to pay out into the merchant's account. So yes, the operations team will onboard the clients onto OmniPay using that pricing information that was mentioned on Salesforce, using the general info about the merchant, etc. And once the merchant has been onboarded on OmniPay and everything's gone through fine, which requires an overnight run at this point in time, we will then inform the technical support team in the UK for them to onboard them onto the gateway. So this is, we're talking about the TRU Connect gateway. We will provide them with the information that they require, such as MCC codes, etc., for what information needs to be onboarded onto the gateway, and they will again just onboard the information onto our MyST system, which will then onboard them onto the TRU Connect gateway. For point of sale, whilst there isn't really the gateway onboarding being done, instead of that, our POS team will handle the ability to order terminals from our third-party service providers in the UK, Malta, etc., to make sure that the terminals arrive at our different clients. Once
so
everything,
just a point, if I
yes, sure.
Just a quick point, if I can mention, just to add to everybody, basically what we were mentioning before from an API perspective, all that Luke is today. The team in Malta are doing a mammoth task whereby they are actually boarding all of this pretty much manually. So the idea is to obviously introduce the APIs I was mentioning before. So first of all, we are able to scale, and secondly, we're able to make the life of the operations team a little bit easier, because to board the likes of 150 mids which were boarded just recently, it takes a hell of an amount of time. So thanks, Luke, and your team for the amount of effort that you do to get these mids boarded today in the archaic way that we're doing today.
Cheers,
Yeah,
Joe.
it's just that. Just let you know, Johan goes home in a submarine, so he's on his way home in a submarine. Sorry, LBC, go for it. But yeah, on a serious note, it's all been manual. It's been so manual for that team. And look, when you go manual, the mistakes are made, and when mistakes are made, it has a knock-on effect. But you got to bear with these guys. It's a very, very manual solution they've got in that ops bit. But that's where we're automating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically the process. Once everything's said and done, the final point is just that we send out an email to our clients to inform them that they've been onboarded with us with a nice little welcome email with general information on how they can get support moving forward from our customer support teams in the UK and in Malta, just to basically let them know that we're still taking care of them after they've been onboarded with us. So that's basically the onboarding process. I know I blabbed on for a little bit of time. Does anyone have any questions with regards to the process?
Luke, it's probably a stupid question. I've heard that it may take up to 24 hours to get a mid from OmniPay. Is that correct?
Yes. So basically, OmniPay have a bit of a restriction from their side where in order to start accepting authorizations, they need to run an overnight process from their end. So if we onboard a merchant from our end at operations right at this point in time, even if we're successful and everything's set up correctly, a merchant can't start processing authorizations immediately. We have to wait for OmniPay to process that overnight run of theirs, and then is only after that's completed successfully will we be able to start accepting authorizations from the clients.
Because this is where you look and go, hold a minute, that mid's on the system. We already grabbed the mid. The bit that Luke's talking about, it's got to be loaded. Remember that flow, that's got to be loaded on OmniPay. That's what's the batch, the overnight one.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't always happen. Anyway.
We are working currently with OmniPay, as Johan was mentioning before about these APIs. We have one that we're working with OmniPay, which is not only going to allow the operations team to just create mids with a click of a button rather than doing everything manually as we are now, but this will also avoid the requirement for that overnight run from OmniPay. So if we click a button on Salesforce and it creates a mid via the API right now, merchants will be able to onboard and start accepting authorizations within about 30 minutes. Correct, Johan? I think it's about 30 minutes, they said, each cycle for the API, right?
They said, I was on a call just before this one. Originally, they said 30 minutes, but now they're pushing it to 2 hours. But it's definitely faster than 24 hours.
And don't forget, guys, you've also now got the active hold pay policy as well. So it's excuse me, it's going to make it even easier or quicker to get these merchants boarded. Yeah, that's the whole essence, is getting that mid live as soon as possible. That's particularly in your field, SMB. That's so critical.
Make sure you're all asking questions, guys. It's going to be a test after this.
The SME stuff, is the active hold pay onboarding, is that available to them, or is it just for the bigger merchants?
No, for everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah, so you should have been sent out the active hold policy. So that's the stuff we've been working on really, really hard to get. Jonathan O'Connor mentioned it last week on the sales call, and it's the policy out there. You can't have a stream of 20, 30 different things on there that need to be fulfilled. But I think something like a rule of 3. As long as you get there, we can get active hold pay. If it's an AML stuff, no. But if it's, I don't know, like again a bank statement or the URL itself, then you can get these live on active hold pay. All right.
Sure.
Luke, just a quick one on the POS side of things. I've got a merchant at the minute who's getting gateway and POS, and From the customer's perspective, after an account's gone live, do they get further correspondence about terminal deliveries after that? It's just at the minute my customer doesn't really know like when the terminal's going to be arriving or anything like that. So I just wanted to know once the account was set up, what happens after that.
Yeah, so basically our POS team, when they're putting orders through our third-party service providers, we're actually provided with tracking numbers for the couriers when these terminals are being sent out. So if you guys have any requirements that your merchants are asking you on the status of a certain delivery, you can reach out to the POS orders team and they can give you the tracking number if required. And this is, we're talking about, you know, your general couriers such as DHL, etc. who are you, so you can just find them online as well using that tracking number.
Luke, you know, you did for my old team, we had that kind of a terminal being, so it's being the meat's been approved, it's being ordered, the flow through. Maybe we should have a separate session for these guys. Not it's only got like a 20 minutes, but just explain who's involved all the way through. Because I think there's a bit of a I get the mid, and all of a sudden, that terminal turns up at the merchant. Probably worth asking the guy or running through the guys with what's actually involved, the third party, secure retail, service logistics for the packs, those kind of things. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Simon Robinson was really good at that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we can create. I can maybe ask Simon to create a process flow, and we'll give it to you guys just so you can have a look. And then obviously, if you guys want to have a quick session just to go over it, just to make sure everything's clear, we can do that as well.
Yeah, just so we can. There's a bit of a black hole from contract going out, POS being delivered, just so we can kind of fill that in for the guys. So just so they know what's happening. If the merchant's ringing them, where is it? We'll know roughly where it is on that journey.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Sure, we'll do that.
Super.
Luke, I've got another probably a bit silly question. We're going to do a campaign next week aimed at our gateway customers to try to convert more to user acquiring. How does it work first is the first point to, I suppose, add acquiring onto an existing gateway customers, how quick that is or not quick that is. So say we've got a gateway customer call today, these guys, okay, I've heard about your acquiring, I want to switch my acquiring from WorldPay to you. How do we do that? Is it quick? Is it, I don't know.
Normal process. It's going to be a normal process. Sorry, Luke, I'm jumping in now. I was going to keep quiet as well. It's normal. It's like a new merchant. Don't forget, on the gateway, we've just taken some basic details. We've not done an underwriting on that gateway customer. So it is a new application that comes in.
Okay, so it's a new app. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, thank you.
Look, we can. I think for this one, we'll definitely have to prioritise them. They'll get fast track through because that's what we need. We need the numbers on the board quickly for the whole of this. But it is a brand new application form that comes in with all the relevant KYC and KYB stuff. Yeah.
And therefore we can take quite a few days, isn't it?
The quality is on what the guys are collecting from the merchants and what the merchant is providing, as always. But look, we can turn these around in 24 hours.
Okay, that's all. That's it. Thank you.
No problem. Before we move on, are there any other questions with regards to the process flow?
Chris Lever he wrote something down on his notes. What was his question? or was it? Can he shut up? More?
Yeah, it was my fault keep interrupting.
Oh, what times two?
Can't get away anymore. Just asking if there were copies of the slide extras.
Yeah, and all these we put on True Hub, guys.
Just wondering as well, in answer to Andy's question, I've got access to the FTFS sort of master spreadsheet, read-only access, so you can see what stage your POS terminals are at in terms of delivery. You can see the tracking number, all that kind of thing. Is it worth getting access for these guys as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be good just to go over the POS flow, as Paul mentioned, because it will give you guys an idea of what you're seeing on that sheet and what everything over there is meant to symbolize, along with our third-party service providers. But yes, we'll definitely give you guys access to it.
Really useful. I find it really useful. Yeah.
What's on the list?
Okay. Move on. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the different costs that are associated with the acquiring services for our clients. So basically, there are two main types of pricing that we can charge on the merchant. One of them is the IC++ model, and the other one is the blended model. So when it comes to the IC++ model, basically, as one of the flows that we were showing before with regards to the settlement, the issuers, so the bank representing the cardholders, the card schemes, which are, Visa and MasterCard, and us as the acquirer are all taking fees, okay, as part of each transaction processed, which is basically the commission that we're taking for our services to process each transaction. So the fee associated with the issuer is called the interchange fee. The fee associated with the card scheme, so Visa and MasterCard, is called the card scheme fees. And then we've got our margin, which is basically what we can call the acquirer's margin.
But don't forget, that's the three: interchange, scheme, margin. Keep that in your head.
Yep. So basically, these two models are basically determining who's going to be absorbing the fees for each of those different three categories that were just mentioned. So in an IC++ model, the card scheme fees, so the Visa and MasterCard side, and the interchange fees, the issuer's fees, are being charged to the merchant. So we are basically passing on those fees on to the merchant, and those fees are being calculated by the OmniPay system. Okay, so OmniPay is going to calculate how much the interchange and card scheme fees were for each individual transaction. And if the merchant is on an IC++ model, it's going to pass on those fees to the merchant. Okay. So the merchant will be charged for the card scheme fees, the interchange fees, as well as any acquiring margin fees that we decide to charge from our side. In a blended model, rather than the card scheme fees and interchange fees being pushed to the merchant, we as the acquirer are actually going to absorb those ourselves. So we are going to pay them. So basically, the merchant is only going to be charged one fee, which is the acquirer margin. Now, the reason that we have these two is basically some merchants want to have a more, straight line fee that they'd want to charge, in a blended rate. They don't want to really see what the splits are maybe between the card scheme and interchange. I want to keep it simple and just want one fixed fee that, is easy to calculate. Whereas other, more technical, let's say, merchants will want to know the exact breakdown of the interchange and card scheme fees as well. I want to know exactly what's being charged for each different individual transaction. So it's important that whichever pricing model we put forward to our merchant, the important thing is that if we're going for the blended pricing model, that you guys are well aware of what our total costs will be with regards to the card scheme and interchange fees, and that we do not charge lower than that amount, because that would mean that we're basically going to be making losses on each transaction for that merchant if, the blended fee that we put forward doesn't cover the card scheme fees and interchange fees.
Guys, just as your default is interchange plus, right? Because the plus at the end, the 10%, sorry, the 10 basis points, 20 basis points, that's our margin. We don't lose out. Blended, it's a very different ball game because you got massive interchange for overseas traffic, international traffic, and it's a minefield. Always go interchange plus. If you're going to go blended, make sure you use the pricing model and you get somebody else to to check it. Now, interesting. What's your mate? Are you still being pushed onto blended, or you're all going interchange plus? What's the on the floor? What is it?
We always do blended, Paul. So interchange plus is only for we only go to that if we could potentially lose. So like a low ATV, we'd go to under £5 ATVs generally. We push to IC++, but blended we go to mainly because SMEs are all on blended, so it's easy.
I knew you were gonna say that, but I wanted to ask the question because I know in that market it is. No, you should let the guys ask it, but I knew that was going to be the case because that's what the market. But you've got to make sure your blended rates they've still got that margin bit in after the interchange and scheme fee. Now, just one quick thing, so I know we're going to be conscious of time. Andre's putting together different pricing models for different markets because at the moment we load quite a lot of scheme fee and everybody gets across the board, right? We're going to start giving you more low risk POS pricing that allows us to be more competitive. But that's coming down the line, all right?
Okay. Are there any questions with regards to the IC++ versus blended models that I was talking about before I move on to the other fees that are part of the pricing that we can charge?
Yeah, just a quick one again, because I'm somewhat unfamiliar with IC++, really, because previously I never quoted it, it will pay, things like that. Is the interchange fees and this card scheme fees set percentage that you would normally put on top of our rates, or is it variable?
Say that again. What was that again? Sorry, I missed that one.
Is the interchange fee and the card scheme fees, are they like a set percentage?
Yeah. So interchange will be wherever it is, from 20 basis points for consumer debit, 30 basis points for consumer credit, all the way up to.
Sorry, they're covered in our pricing calculator, Andy. You'll see them on the right where it says cost.
All right, so it's not about the pricing model. It's all in there. But what I'm saying is, soon we'll be getting because we load a lot of scheme fees, because we get scheme fees at the end of the month or quarterly. We try and cover those costs, but everybody gets hit with the same scheme fees. We're going to be more competitive with our pricing, so we can make more margin and be and our customers are getting the right pricing by having low risk and POS pricing, where the scheme fees drop.
That would be so useful as well. If he's writing, what pricing is better for what MCC, we'll be able to actually say to the merchant, we've done the research, and based on the type of business you have, this is the best suited pricing because it's more favourable to you.
Yeah. And that's no means task, because we got so many scheme fees coming all over. But that's the big task for Andre. So we will get you better pricing, guys. All right.
Paul, just a generic comment on this. Let's just be careful. From a technical perspective, it's charging incentive rates from an OmniPay perspective is not just pretty much out of the box.
I know. Yeah, we've had
situations. There are situations where we are not adding the specific elements to trigger incentive rates, and unless we send the actual attributes for the incentive rates, we will never be able to hit them. So please do share with us what you intend to charge, because we need to determine whether or not we are sending these elements in the 80-byte file to OmniPay.
Yeah. And we've got separate calls. Not for this one. I just wanted to give the guys a bit of a head. That's a whole separate project, but I agree. Yeah. Conscious of time. Sorry.
No problem. I'll quickly go through the other fees that are available for us to charge to merchants. So, okay, besides the acquirer margin that we're speaking about before, we also have the option to charge different fees to our merchants that could generate more revenue for us off of them. So, some examples are administration fees, such as fees for setting up the merchant. Okay, so it would be a one-off setup fee. We can charge merchants on a monthly basis for services provided. We also have the ability to charge merchants for each request for change that they submit. So basically, if they want to amend anything on their system and on what they've kind of submitted as part of their first onboarding application, if they want to change anything, they have the ability to submit what's called an RFC, request for change. And we also have the ability to charge merchants for those. Okay, these are all available for us to input as part of that pricing that I was mentioning before, that account management / sales will input on Salesforce. We've got transactional fees. Okay, so we can charge fees on authorizations, on refunds, on OCTs. Okay, we can make margins off of DCC and any conversions being done on OmniPay as well. Okay, these are all configurable. We've got third-party services fees. So basically for high-risk merchants, if we need to register them for any MasterCard or Visa programs, we'll need to take those into account to make sure to pass on the fees to the merchant. We can charge them for the wire fee. So basically for each bank transfer that's done to pay out to the merchant. There's also PCI DSS portal fees. So these are basically fees for them to use our portal, which ensures that they are PCI compliant. Okay, and then we also have the ability to charge for dispute fees. So basically, as part of the transactional flow, if a cardholder wants to dispute any transaction, I don't know, they didn't receive the goods or the goods were damaged, and our merchant refuses to provide a refund, the cardholder has the ability to raise a chargeback. Okay, and depending on whether these are escalated or not to chargeback or any later stage, we have the ability to charge fees to our merchant for those going to that stage, because they actually reflect badly on us as an acquirer. Our merchants process a large amount of chargebacks. So it's always important to include, at the very least, a chargeback fee for each merchant that we're onboarding. I don't know, Paul, do you want to add anything over here before we move on?
There is a pricing BRD that's being put together where a lot of this will be properly calculated, go against your numbers, you being recompensed for the whole lot. So we've tried to had to break it down because it's such a big project. But there is a pricing BRD that's being put together, which hopefully we'll be getting in the very near future.
Perfect. Before moving on, are there any other questions with regards to the fees and pricing?
Hi, yeah, I had a question in regards to when it comes to sort of retentions and wanting to maybe keep customers who are looking to leave to a different provider. What sort of could be the go-to sort of fees that would leave enough room to maybe waive or have some negotiation about dropping? I know that we want to keep the billing as high as possible and make it profitable, but is there any areas that we can offer something up our sleeve, really?
I think that's a Matt question rather than the two Malta boys.
Yeah, I'll just say we've got the pricing calculator, so use that, utilize that. We'll obviously have a bit more on that once Andre's done the new version, but you know, try and tailor it to what they're using with the data we have. So taking loads of over the phone payments, can we offer another product there that's going to save them? Can we offer them anything? It all depends on the merchant, really. But yeah, the pricing calculator is the main thing when you're looking at pricing, what we can save them, that sort of thing. It also, the one that I built's got a comparison tool in there, so you can look at if someone else has quoted them, what's the comparison, what are they actually saving if they were to leave, and what can we save them with us, can we save them the same amount? But also talk about, this week's going to be a lot about value added services, so all the stuff that we can add on potentially for free to save them and keep them with us, and you know, build a better overall proposition.
Yeah, because you're attacking the back book, you will go in pricing, but when it's our own merchants, it's almost try and protect that pricing and try and offer the other stuff. If you have to go down, start selling them other products as well. The headline is the buy rates or the sell rates, we say. We'll see if we can start charging for other things.
And that's another. So obviously we're going out to this back book saying we're going to save them 20% on the requirement. That's not just through cutting their fees, it's also through adding these value added services. So we might not save them anything up front, but we're going to save them in the long run.
Good question.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Good question.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on?
Oh yeah, I've got a quick one. Some of the questions that we get, especially in the AMT, is there going to be any sort of projects to clean up the merchant statements that merchants receive, just to make it a bit more clearer?
Yeah.
Quite a lot of confusion.
So part of the Lawrence, the new guy, the data guy, we're going to give him one of his tasks is his statements. They are poor. They're shocking. What comes out of RAM. They are really, really bad. So the whole kind of billing, reconciliation, statements is all part of his bag on that one. Yeah, we've got to get better.
Has everyone seen a statement? Have we got one, Luke, back to hand at all that we can just show the team?
Over here, I don't have, because I'm actually using my own personal laptop at this point in time, so I don't actually have a statement saved here. But I can send one round. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I raised it with Nikki. Whether we could do something like WorldPay ones. Yeah, send them a WorldPay example. Because they're really clear, really easy to read. Yeah.
Yeah, Rio had a mini project and she was feeding it in. Look, we need to. I think it was shocking when so one of our biggest customers, LSE, we don't even send them a statement, and they give us so much revenue. So we need to up our game on that one. Totally agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of work going on the statement front for sure at this point in time. Yeah, as Paul mentioned, Lawrence is working hard on that. So
yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So these are just a couple of questions that maybe can help you guys when you're talking to your clients on, trying to engage them to see how we can get the upper hand on our competitors, and how we can basically see how best to support them from our side. So basically, it's understanding what their business model is, okay, and how they're working. So understanding that and retrieving the necessary documents from them is going to help our underwriting team to get them through that underwriting process and getting them onboarded as soon as possible. So you guys understanding what the merchant's doing and how they do it is just going to help when you can provide that information to our underwriting team, so that they don't have to stay, exploring constantly, getting back to you guys with questions that have to go back to the merchant, and lots of back and forth. So understanding what the merchant does is obviously a very important thing. What service provider are you currently using, and what are your pain points on their system? So basically understanding who they're using at the moment, why they're using them, and what they're looking for in their next solution, be it from an acquiring or a gateway solution perspective. So both questions 2 and 3 there are basically, we need to understand what the merchant wants to see. So as Johan explained before, we have quite a customizable system from our end, in the sense that we have the ability to develop out changes from our side, that is from the gateway side, and we're also looking into the acquiring side as well, and offering different solutions and different services. So it's always good to understand what a merchant is looking for and which kind of aspects of the services that we provide would be best suited for them, in making sure that we can attract them from our competitors from that perspective. And the last question over here is an understanding of what they're doing in terms of reporting. So as Paul mentioned before, our statements at this point in time aren't great, but at the same time, we are looking to update them in the very near future. So understanding what merchants are looking for is going to really help us to make sure that our next delivery of reporting is going to be what merchants expect, and it's going to give them the information that they need. That's really going to help us to win a lot of clients over. So if we get this reporting and statement function good, we're really going to be able to kind of beat our competitors over there, who don't all have the best systems out there. So us having a fresh look at the reporting area is definitely going to help us over there. From our end, those are the sides. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions off of this last slide, or anything else that you'd like to ask me and Johan. Just anything in general with regards to operations or the project management perspective.
Hi guys, thank you. It's been great, Johan and Luke. I just a quick question, and just to confirm again, one of the products I guess the team are looking at is Rule Manager.
Yes,
maybe
that's
Johan,
5 minutes. Yeah. There's the next 5 minutes.
Great, thanks, Johan.
Anything else, guys?
So unless there are questions, we can move on to the 5-minute Rule Manager explanation.
Yes, please.
Okay, so guys, the next 5 minutes, the Rule Manager, we did not prepare a slide for the simple reason that the Rule Manager is an internal component which is very much used for processing OCTs. So essentially, it's part of the Visa Direct product, and it contains all the checks and validations that we are, as an acquirer, bound to perform in relation to the correct compliance to the Visa Direct rules. So first and foremost, Visa Direct does not allow, first of all, I think everybody is familiar with what the Visa Direct product does. Am I correct in stating so?
Yeah.
So basically, we are sending out payouts on behalf of the merchant to our cardholders. Now, the schemes, in particular Visa, do not allow any indefinite amount, both from a transactional count as well as from a volume, of payouts per day, per week, per month, whatever. So there are thresholds. The thresholds are in place, and the Rule Manager is directly responsible for ensuring that those thresholds are adhered to. So there are thresholds for daily counts, both volume and transactional count, weekly and monthly. And as soon as these thresholds are elapsed, the Rule Manager will immediately starting to decline. So rather than waiting to go to the schemes and getting charged from OmniPay and the schemes for the authorization cost, we are blocking them at source. So when the authorization hits our own gateway, we will run the check through the rule manager, and if the thresholds are elapsed, it will be declined there immediately. So that's that's check number 1. Check number 2 is the PEP and sanction screening. So Visa Direct require as a program, we are requested to screen not only the merchant, which is part of the onboarding process, but also the recipient of funds. So in essence, what for every payout that we send, we are screening for whether the recipient is a politically exposed or a sanctioned, and if it is, we decline the transaction once again at source. And thirdly, at the moment, what we have is a balance check, which is driven by basically when we have Visa Direct merchants, to say that, the model is that we need to pre-fund the transactions. So if we know that a merchant is going to process X thousand euros in payouts, we ensure that these are pre-funded, and we practically the balance checker ensures that there actually are funds available for those payouts. Unless we have that check in place, pretty much the merchant will start sending payouts and will end up in negative balance. So we actually have a situation where the merchant owes us and we're making a loss in essence. So the rule manager is pretty much that middleware, the technical middleware, which ensures the checks and balances on the Visa Direct program. Now, those 3 rules are what we have today. Having said so, we have already 2 change requests in the pipeline to enhance the product and add more controls. For example, one of the requests was that we put in balance limits based on MCC. Another one was that we ensure that we cannot, as a merchant, process more than a certain amount of threshold. So the product is evolving, but as I was explaining before, this is directly part of the OC solution that we are offering via the Visa Direct program.
Johan, ask quick question. Those rules, they're set up by us, or does the merchant can set some rules? I understand there's some that are kind of imposed by.
No, these are all set up by us. So they are coded and there are parameters in place. The merchant cannot set up rules themselves. No.
Okay, so that's it. That's
my understanding was the merchant can control it once it's set up.
Not for Visa Direct, no.
So
there is another rule manager, which there was a bit of confusion. It's with the gateway, and I believe Natalie was going to mention some things on that.
All right. So just for the room, Visa Direct rule manager is not one that will probably sell as much as the other rule managers. So
no, exactly.
Yeah. So just want to make sure we don't confuse them too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pick up the other rule manager separately then,
because that's the other one is an added value where the merchant can set some rules. It's all about being in control of a certain criteria wants to be all over. I don't know, maybe it's from the Apple.
No, the other one, the other rule manager is linked to MyST. In essence, for example, you can set up email notifications for your customers. You can submit a notification system when a transaction is processed, etc., etc. That is part of the MyST rule manager, not the OST rule manager.
Exactly, and I think that's why I asked the question, because the way you position it is indeed was controlled by us, but the other one, which is interesting for that team, is the part of the rule. Can be set up by merchant, which is it flags whatever it wants to be informed of, it can flag. That's an added value. It goes back to MyST being quite an attractive solution that we do offer to the customer. Thank you, Johan. Sorry, I knew there was a confusion.
We have a minute left before we need to jump on to the next. Does anybody have any further questions for Luke or for Johan?
You're a good timekeeper, Lee.
Somebody's got to keep this thing under track.
Very good, and I'm glad that Johan has got home from his little submarine trip.
Paul, I was actually having, for a change, as you've experienced, well, technical issues with the internet in the office. I know very well.
Oh, so you get a better signal 30 meters down below.
And I was pretty much dialing from my phone.
On the beach. I mean,
all right, Captain Johan.
So if my submarine is my desk, then yes, I was on the submarine.
Guys, thanks very much.
Thanks, Johan. Thanks,
Hello,
Luke.
boys.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
I'll let you guys know once we've uploaded the stuff onto the TRU Hub page.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks a lot. Yes. Okay, guys. Very quick.
Next one.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.